Husband DUI hit someone and tricked me into serving time for him. When I got out of prison, he had already remarried, and his new wife was my best friend. My 5-year-old daughter was chained to the balcony, living like a dog. They were afraid I'd seek revenge and try to run me over, but I was reborn. My husband pleaded desperately on his knees for me to take the blame for him. I kicked him away. To hell with your mother, you criminal. Go to jail. The full story begins now. Grace, you need to go. I suddenly snapped back to reality. The scene before me was so familiar. I had been reborn. My husband, David, was kneeling in front of me, clutching my hand, his face filled with anxiety. Quick, change clothes with me. It'll be too late when the police arrive. In my previous life, David, after a DUI hit and run, forced me to take the blame. He threatened me in various ways. Eventually, confused, I put on the clothes he wore during the accident and went to the police station to turn myself in. I thought serving time for him was a sacrifice for our family, for the good of our child. But I never imagined David was an animal. While I was in prison, he divorced me, married my best friend, and abused my daughter. My 5-year-old was chained by her neck, hanging on the balcony like a dog. She was alive, my sweetheart, whom I'd risked my life for. David, how could you be so cruel? Staring at the man before me, I wanted nothing more than to rip him to shreds. Seeing me motionless, David grew anxious, reaching out to grab my clothes. I kicked him away. To hell with your mother, you criminal. Go to jail. David froze for a moment, then reacted, scrambling towards me on his hands and knees. Honey, think about our child. Do you have the ability to earn money to support our child and this family? Was I incapable of earning money? I clearly had a greater earning capacity than David, and a higher position in the company. He was the one who constantly pushed me to resign and stay home to care for our child. Once I resigned, he complained I only spent money at home. Now, after making a mistake, he still wants me to take the blame. This scumbag deserves to be in jail. David continued to try to brainwash me. Seeing him grow increasingly desperate, and worried he might resort to desperate measures. This man was far more terrifying than I had imagined. I decided to calm him down first. Honey, I'll go wash my face and calm down. I'll be right out to change clothes with you. David stared intently at me, afraid I'd run off. As I entered the bathroom, he didn't forget to remind me. Hurry up. As soon as I said that, I turned around and locked the door, then dialed 911 call. In less than 10 minutes, there was a knock at the door. David panicked, frantically pounding on the bathroom door. Grace, hurry up and come out. I'm coming out of the bathroom immediately. David glared menacingly at me. Before he could speak, I interrupted him. Who's knocking outside? Is it the police? Honey, quick, take off your clothes and hide in the closet. I'll handle the police. David's expression softened, and he excitedly grabbed my hand. Honey, I'm counting on you. Staring at his retreating back, I silently sneered coldly, then turned and opened the door. Who are you looking for? 3 police officers stood outside, staring sternly at me. Is David home? I nervously lowered my head, my eyes involuntarily glancing at the clothes on the floor. No, he's not home. The police pushed past me and entered the house. Soon, they found David, covered in blood, in the closet and cuffed him. I rushed forward with tear-filled eyes. No, you can't take my honey. The police wouldn't listen to me and forcibly took David away. My 2-year-old daughter, hearing the commotion, toddled out of the room. Looking at her adorable little face, I hugged her with a heavy heart. She seemed a little scared, asking softly, Patricia, why are you crying? I hugged her tightly. It's nothing, Patricia is happy. Reborn into this life, it's time to settle the debts these people owe me. The next day, before dawn, the front door was pounded on. I calmed my daughter and got up to open the door. My in-laws angrily came to question me. David has been arrested by the police. Do you still have the mind to sleep? In my previous life, David unilaterally divorced me. When my dad found out, he rushed to my in-laws' house to demand an explanation. Those 2 old hags turned the tables on me, saying I was disreputable and went to jail, tarnishing their family's reputation, which angered my dad so much he had a heart attack. My dad felt suffocated with grief after returning home, and passed away shortly after. When he died, David and they didn't notify me, so I didn't even get to see him one last time. I hated those 2 old hags. Patricia and Richard, with David in trouble, my world has fallen apart. Of course, I'm anxious. Last night, I was actually going to take the blame for David, but the police had undeniable evidence, so there was nothing I could do. Patricia eyed me coldly. I told her not to worry yet, saying my friend Tiffany had relatives working at the local precinct and I'd call them. Hearing Tiffany's name, Patricia's eyes lit up instantly. Then quickly contact Tiffany. I immediately contacted Tiffany, asking her to come to the house. Once everyone was here, it would be easier to catch them all. I didn't want to let any of these scumbags off the hook. In less than half an hour, Tiffany arrived, anxiously asking about David's situation. How could this happen? Tiffany looked worried. My honey, he's even more proactive than me. I suppressed my anger and said to them, before you arrived, I contacted the victim's family. To get a settlement agreement, we need to pay $800,000 in damages. $800,000? Are they trying to rob us? Tiffany exclaimed. Patricia jumped up excitedly. In my previous life, a large part of why I was in prison for so long was because the victim's family refused to settle. I always thought they just wanted me to stay in jail and didn't want a settlement agreement. Later, I found out David refused to pay, hoping I'd serve more years to offset the debt. Since heaven gave me the chance to be reborn, I naturally had to give David what he deserved. Right now, David is the priority. If the victim's family is willing to forgive, and we ask our relatives to pull some strings, this matter might just pass. Patricia glared at me impatiently. Then why aren't you going to get the money? I simply spread my hands. I don't have any money. Before Patricia could get angry, I turned to Tiffany for help. Tiff, all our family's money is managed by David. I don't have a single penny in my pocket. Can you lend it to me first, and I'll pay you back when David gets out? Tiffany was a bit reluctant, but she couldn't resist my various persuasions. She also had a secret. David was in the car with her when the accident happened last night. In my previous life, I only found this out when I died, which is why I called her immediately. She's most afraid of David getting into trouble and exposing him. Then her affair with David would be revealed. She's currently working at the company, and if I make a fuss about this, her career would be over. Tiffany hesitated, saying, I can only help with $200,000. I looked at her filled with gratitude. Tiff, David will never forget your kindness. If David really gets out alive, I'll kindly set you two up. They're perfect for each other, two miserable souls destined to be together. After dealing with the little scum, I turned my attention to my in-laws. Patricia looked directly at me. David is in such big trouble, your dad has to help, right? Doesn't he have a pension? Now's the time to use it. The old hag is still scheming against my dad. Patricia, I already contacted my dad. All his pension is invested, and withdrawal takes a week. He promised me he'd transfer it as soon as it clears. David was already doomed. My in-laws got anxious, demanding I hand over the $200,000 borrowed from Tiffany. Were they trying to protect themselves from me? I immediately handed over the money and actively provided the location of the hospital where the victim was. Patricia and Richard, hurry up and go. Whether you have to beg on your knees or be yelled at by the other party, you must make them accept this money and get the settlement agreement. Understood? Hearing this, a flicker of fear appeared on Patricia's face. I added, you must appease the victim's family and don't stop the follow-up work, even if we have to grovel and beg for their forgiveness. A flicker of discomfort appeared on Tiffany's face. She then tried to persuade me. Grace, they're so old. This kind of thing isn't suitable for them to handle. You should go. But I hesitated, looking at Patricia. The next second, the old hag shoved the debit card into my hand. You go. I secretly rejoiced, but kept a reluctant expression on my face. Having been submissive for so long, Patricia wouldn't suspect I had such courage. Patricia then launched into another scolding. Why aren't you going? Don't you want to save David? I'm going right now. With that, I went into the house, hugged my daughter, and prepared to leave. Seeing me with my daughter, a look of suspicion flashed across Patricia's face. Why are you taking the kiddo to see the victim's family? I feigned helplessness and said, Patricia, Lily is so young. If the other party sees our pitiful child, they might soften up. 80,000? Hearing my reasoning, Patricia nodded in approval. You actually have some sense. Hurry up and go. I quickly left with my daughter, not daring to delay for a moment. My daughter was my weakness. Only by settling her and my father could I unleash my full power against these scumbags. After leaving the house, I immediately transferred the money from the debit card. Looking at the balance on my phone, I couldn't help but laugh. This $800,000 would be my compensation for my lost youth. David coming out? In your dreams. The real show was yet to come. I would enjoy playing with them slowly. I disappeared for an entire morning. My in-laws blew up my phone, and Tiffany was also looking for me through various channels. In the evening, I proactively contacted Tiffany, giving her an address and telling her to come alone, and definitely not to inform my in-laws. There was a knock at the door. I got up and pulled open a crack in the door. Tiffany was standing outside. I scrutinized her, confirmed she was alone, and let her in. Grace, what are you doing? Not answering your phone, not replying to messages. Are you trying to disappear? Tiffany complained. Perhaps sensing her tone was too harsh, Tiffany suddenly changed her tune. Grace, I was just too worried about you. That's why I was so agitated. David cheated. I made a sudden remark, startling Tiffany. She looked at me in surprise. How do you know? I accidentally saw his transaction history on his phone, and his romantic hotel booked for Valentine's Day. I'm certain he cheated, but I haven't found out who the mistress is yet. Hearing my last words, Tiffany visibly relaxed. So what are you going to do? I said coldly. David was heartless, so I'll be unjust. Let him rot in jail. As for that mistress, I will definitely find her. Tiffany turned deathly pale, staring blankly ahead. I slammed her hand on her shoulder, making her jump. Tiff, what are you thinking? Why such a strange expression? Tiffany, guilty, couldn't meet my gaze. Nothing, I was just surprised that David would actually cheat. Heh, where was he when they were entangled? I scoffed. Tiff, do me a favor. I want to divorce David. Tiffany looked up at me abruptly. Divorce? David's in the detention center right now. How can you divorce? As long as I get evidence of David's cheating, I can file for divorce. At the mention of evidence, Tiffany nearly died of fright. She asked me what evidence. I told her that David had taken that woman to the new house overnight before, and the security cameras at the new house should have captured those images. Only David and my in-laws had keys to that house. To get the evidence, I decided to bring a locksmith and forcibly open the lock. I asked her to go to my in-laws' house and keep them busy. Tiffany readily agreed. She asked me when I would return the $200,000 to her. All the money she had from her secret affair with David over the years was more than that, and she still had the nerve to ask me for it. However, I couldn't fall out with her yet. I told her I'd pay her back after I finished dividing assets with David. Tiffany was helpless, but she had a guilty conscience and dared not ask me for it again. Scoffed disdainfully. Affection? Did he care about my feelings when he was cheating around and finding mistresses? I deliberately steered the hatred towards emotional jealousy. Patricia's expression settled a bit. She tried to appease me, asking me to spare David for our daughter's sake. This time, she had the nerve to mention my daughter. Just now, she was cursing me, calling me a little scum. What a shameless old hag. If you have nothing else, just leave and let me have some peace. My honey, afraid I would call the police, dared not bring up the money again, and then found an excuse to leave. Watching their hurried retreat, I guess they were probably going to destroy evidence. Let's see who's faster. Grace, I have news, hurry over. After receiving a call from my friend Emily, I rushed to the hospital immediately. Reborn, I finally knew who was human and who was a ghost around me. Emily, Tiffany, and I grew up in the same neighborhood, but my relationship with Emily wasn't as good as with Tiffany. Tiffany said Emily was too arrogant and advised me not to get too close to her. Later, I realized Tiffany was jealous of Emily, feeling that Emily's better family background would overshadow her, which was why she didn't want to associate with Emily. In my previous life, when I got out of prison, the only person who helped me was Emily. Penniless, if it weren't for her support, I would have starved to death on the streets. Grace here. I turned and saw Emily. She handed me her phone, showing me a video she'd taken, her voice filled with anger. I can't believe Tiffany is so despicable. You've known her for over a decade, and she still has the nerve. In the video, Patricia and Tiffany walked hand in hand to the hospital maternity ward. In my previous life, when I got out, Tiffany and David's child was already 3 years old, meaning she had gotten pregnant shortly after I went to prison. Not long after I entered prison, David couldn't wait to divorce me, saying it was for our daughter's schooling, as he didn't want serving time in prison listed under the mother's section when she enrolled. Thinking of my poor daughter, I agreed. But the truth was Tiffany was pregnant, and it was a boy. That's why David was in such a hurry to divorce me and marry her. Given Tiffany's temper, if she discovered she was pregnant, she would definitely go to David. Now that David was arrested, her target would shift to Patricia. That day, after settling my daughter, I immediately found Emily. She and Tiffany still lived across the street from each other, so I asked her to keep an eye on Tiffany. Thank you so much for this. Emily patted my shoulder reassuringly. No need to be polite with me. Tiffany is too much. I can't stand people who stab me in the back. What are you going to do next? To successfully divorce, I must get evidence of David cheating. The child in Tiffany's belly is the strongest evidence. With this child, plus the dashcam video, I have enough evidence. I plan to divorce. Emily nodded in agreement. Why keep such a scumbag around? Tiffany, you can't let her off easily. That kind of person is too evil, treating you like a fool. I certainly won't let that scum off. Thinking about what she did to my daughter, I wish I could tear her to pieces. My dad is in trouble. When I got the call, I collapsed to the ground. If it weren't for a kind passerby helping me, I wouldn't even have known how to get a taxi to the hospital. Is that jockey? At the hospital, I clutched Emily's hand tightly, looking helplessly at the operating room. Emily didn't dare to answer my question, only constantly comforting me and apologizing. Grace, I'm sorry, I didn't expect to be followed. That's not your fault, Emily. David knew my family home address. He knew my father and daughter were my weaknesses, and my family home wasn't safe, so I entrusted Emily to find a place to temporarily settle them. I looked around, and when I didn't see my daughter, my heart leaped into my throat. Where's Lily? Lily was snatched by Grandma Patricia. I was rushing to get Mr. Miller to the hospital and couldn't focus on Lily. My mind was in turmoil. I wanted to go get my daughter back, but I couldn't leave my father, who was in the operating room. It must have been Tiffany. Only she could have been watching Emily, and thus found my dad's whereabouts. The rage inside me instantly reached its peak. If I didn't tear this scum to pieces, I wouldn't deserve to be human. The surgery ended. My dad was brought in on time, and was temporarily out of danger. Upon hearing this news, I secretly sighed in relief. After asking Emily to take care of my father, I went straight to my in-laws' house. I absolutely could not let my daughter fall into the hands of these scumbags. My in-laws opened the door and saw me, their faces immediately sinking. What are you doing here? I pushed them, intending to go inside, but they firmly blocked the door. Our Ford family has no place for you. Get out. Patricia, give me back my daughter, or don't blame me for taking you down with me. Faced with my threat, Patricia was unfazed. Lily is our Ford family's granddaughter. With you, that scum, she'll only learn bad things. Time was limited, and I didn't want to waste words with this old hag. I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to give me back my daughter? Patricia hadn't responded yet when Tiffany's voice came from behind. Grace, what's all this fuss? How can you talk to Auntie like that? I turned around and slapped Tiffany directly across the face, showing her no courtesy at all. She covered her face, looking at me in surprise. Grace Wu, are you crazy? You even hit me. Don't you know what you've done? She, guilty, couldn't meet my gaze and stubbornly argued. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just saying I'll take you down with me. Let's all be destroyed together. Even if I die, I'll drag all these scumbags to hell with me. If you don't know, then open your phone and take a good look at the shameful acts you've committed. Everyone knows about them. Tiffany eyed me suspiciously, then frantically opened her phone. Her eyes wide with shock, her hand trembling as she held the phone. How did you find out? I sent the dashcam video to Tiffany's company work group. In the video, their shameful acts were exposed in full detail. You love me so passionately, I'm not afraid. You won't be able to explain this to your wife when you get back. David said. Don't mention that frumpy wife, it's a mood killer. Her flabby, saggy flesh can't compare to you, my vixen. So all my years of hard work and sacrifice, in David's eyes, were nothing more than a common, frumpy wife. The reason I didn't explode the moment David went in, but instead feigned compliance with them, was to buy time and gather all the evidence in my favor. Yes, I was crazy, driven crazy by you. My dad and Lily are my bottom line. If you dare touch them, then we'll all die together. Seeing me approach, Tiffany nervously backed away, looking at me with terror. When did you find out? I grabbed him by the collar and demanded. We've known each other for over a decade. I treated you like my best friend. Why did you do this to me? Tiffany, are you even human? Tiffany suddenly laughed, looking at me with a hint of triumph. You were always bragging to me about how much your husband loved you and how good he was to your family. I just lifted a finger and he took the bait. Was I bragging? I treated her like a good sister, hoping she'd find happiness and encouraged her to marry early, but in her eyes it became my bragging. Just for that, you shamelessly seduced someone else. You're truly despicable. Tiffany stomped her foot in anger. I advise you to quickly retract the video and say you deliberately framed me. Otherwise I will definitely make you regret it. I smiled. You need to have some shame, Tiffany. How thick-skinned can you be to say something like that? So tell me, how will you make me regret it? Tiffany looked at me sinisterly. I can make sure you never see your daughter again. I panicked. My calm composure shattered. I looked at Tiffany anxiously, my voice trembling with terror. Is my daughter in your hands? What have you done to her? Don't you think it's despicable to threaten me with my daughter? Tiffany nodded smugly. That's right, your daughter is in my hands. If you don't listen, if you don't do as I say, then don't blame me for harming your daughter. I turned to my in-laws standing behind me. No matter what, Lily is still the Ford family's granddaughter, right? How can you treat her like this? Patricia sneered. That kiddo is just a burden. The one in Tiff's belly is our golden grandson. You better do what Tiff says, or don't blame us for being rough with that little brat. Breaking her limbs would be light. If you upset us, we'll just kill her. Tiffany impatiently urged me. You're like an ant on a hot griddle. Every second delayed meant more people would see her ugly truth. Grace Wu, I advise you to hurry up, or else prepare to collect your daughter's body. I stared at him and laughed out loud. She looked at me in confusion, questioning, What are you laughing at? I told her to turn around and look. Several police officers were already walking towards us. Tiffany hadn't understood what was happening yet. She just looked at me in surprise. You called the police? I held up my phone. The screen showed it was still on a call. When Tiffany arrived, I had already called the police station. Our conversation just now was monitored by the police the whole time. Her and those two old hags' kidnapping of my daughter was already undeniable evidence. I advised her to be honest. Did she really think I was stupid? Knowing they took my daughter to threaten me, would I still walk into a trap? I had already called the police on the way from the hospital. If Tiffany dared to have someone follow Emily, snatch my daughter, and threaten me, I would naturally make her pay the legal price for her actions. If I reported that Patricia kidnapped her granddaughter, the police would only consider it a family dispute and wouldn't be able to bring Tiffany to justice. Only by having Tiffany personally confess to kidnapping my daughter could she be put in jail. Having lived two lives, no one understood her better than I did. Her pride, her arrogance, her disdain for me, all destined her for a bad end. The police produced silver handcuffs, preparing to take Tiffany away. Tiffany was terrified, stammering an explanation. Officer, he instigated me. I really didn't. The police looked at her sternly. Tiffany, we've already found the young child, Lily Ford, who was forcibly taken from your home. Tiffany was stunned. She never imagined the police would act so quickly. My reason for stalling with Tiffany was also to buy time, allowing the police to find and rescue my daughter as quickly as possible. My daughter was their strongest bargaining chip to threaten me. Knowing I would rush to my in-laws' house, they naturally wouldn't keep my daughter there. The most likely place was Tiffany's house. When the police informed me via earpiece that my daughter had been found, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. I stopped pretending with Tiffany and revealed everything to her. Tiffany's face instantly turned ashen. She stared at me blankly, then began to scream hysterically. No, I don't want to go to jail. No one expected Tiffany to assault an officer, or that she would take me hostage and threaten the police. Tiffany grabbed the fruit knife from the dining table and held it against my neck. We were too close, and it happened too suddenly. No one reacted in time. Tiffany, are you crazy? Tiffany was emotionally unstable. She yelled at the police. Get away. Stay back or I'll kill her. The police tried to calm Tiffany down, trying not to provoke her. We'll back away, stay back. Just calm down. I don't want to go to jail. All of you get out. Tiffany waved the sharp knife, signaling the police to retreat. The sharp blade cut my neck, and beads of blood immediately seeped out. For my safety, the police dared not move. Everyone was trying to persuade Tiffany, but her emotions had collapsed. She only thought of escaping by holding me hostage. At the crucial moment, I suddenly asked Tiffany, the person you envy most isn't Emily, it's me, right? Tiffany froze, staring at me dumbfounded. She didn't want her most vulnerable side to be seen. What nonsense are you talking about? Why would I envy you? The honey you love loves me. You're just a fool I've strung along. What do I need to envy about you? I laughed calmly. You envy that I have loving parents and a harmonious family, unlike you, who grew up in a painful dysfunctional family. Your dad cheated, and every time he was out with other women, Patricia would hit you to vent, using you as a punching bag. Tiffany, you are a complete and utter miserable wretch. Tiffany went insane. She furiously yelled at me. "Shut your scum mouth." I said shut up. At the height of the chaos, I suddenly looked up and shouted, "Hee hee, Patricia, how did you get here?" Tiffany paused, instinctively looking up. Seizing this gap, the police I had coordinated with immediately rushed forward and pulled me out. Tiffany reacted, still struggling desperately, and painful screams erupted. As Tiffany wrestled with the police, the sharp knife in her hand accidentally stabbed herself in the stomach. Patricia, standing nearby, turned deathly pale at the sight, exclaiming, "Call an ambulance quickly. My golden grandson can't be harmed. I came to visit David in prison. He also brought my lawyer." David looked at me through the glass partition, his eyes filled with malice. "Scum, you have the nerve to visit me?" I had the lawyer submit divorce papers for David to sign. Seeing the agreement I handed over, David burst into maniacal laughter. "You want to divorce me and take most of my assets? Dream on. If you want a divorce, I'll make sure you don't get your way." I looked up, scrutinizing David. How was I so blind back then not to see that this man was a scumbag? I eyed David coldly, my voice devoid of emotion. "Giving you the divorce papers is just a formality. If you don't agree, I can sue for divorce anytime. Your cheating is already a fact. Divorce is inevitable." David was enraged. He pounded on the table, yelling that he would kill me. After the prison guard stopped him, he changed to threats. "I'll be out in just a few months. Then we'll see if I kill you or not." I smiled. "Do you think no one knows about the things you've done? You think you'll get out in 10 years? David looked at me in surprise, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Scum, what exactly have you done?" I said, "The USB drive hidden in your dad's study. I've already given it to Mr. Evans at your company." David, who had just stood up, instantly collapsed back into his chair. No one knew better than him what that meant. He had secretly transferred company assets and embezzled project funds. After I submitted his criminal evidence, their company had already decided to take action against him. Tens of millions in embezzled funds, such a large sum is enough to keep David in there for 10 years. He wanted to get revenge on me. He could try to find me after 10 years. David was scared. He began to cry, admitting his mistakes to me, kneeling and begging for forgiveness. "Honey, I was wrong. I just made a mistake any man would make. Why are you trying to destroy me? Honey, please help me. I promise I'll reform myself when I get out." He changed his tune quickly, but unfortunately, I had already seen the true nature of this scumbag. His tear-filled appearance was truly nauseating. I didn't want to stay in this rotten place for another minute. Let them enjoy it themselves. "I signed the agreement for you." The scumbag was still pleading desperately with me, continuously calling my name. I stopped, turned around and looked. He thought I had changed my mind, looking at me with joy. "Honey, you've thought it over, haven't you? So you're going to help me now?" I smiled coldly. "I just forgot to tell you one piece of news. Tiffany was pregnant, and it was a boy. Tragically, he killed it himself." David went completely insane, lunging at me like a raging animal. He forgot that we now lived in two different worlds. No matter how much he raged, he couldn't pose the slightest threat to me. The prison cell's glass door separated him from me, and his remaining life was destined to be spent in prison, where he would be reformed and atone for his mistakes. As I walked out of the prison, I saw my dad and my daughter. After treatment, my dad's condition was effectively controlled, and his body was recovering day by day. My daughter saw me and happily waved her hands, wanting a hug. I bent down, picked up my daughter, and hugged her tightly. The joy of having her back made my eyes well up with tears. I had promised to protect my daughter completely and ensure her safety and well-being for life, and I did it. My dad, seeing my teary eyes, felt heartbroken. "Daughter," he said, "everything's over now. It's good that you're divorced, don't be sad." I shook my head. "Dad, I'm not sad, I'm happy. How wonderful it will be for the three of us to live happily together from now on." Given this new life, the two most important people in my life were safely by my side. What else could make me happier than this? Now even my tears were of joy. I swore I would be their strongest support, and wouldn't let them suffer any harm. David was sentenced to 10 years, while Tiffany's crimes were even more severe than his, and she was directly sentenced to 12 years. When the verdict was announced, David's Patricia and Richard fainted in the courtroom. His dad suffered a sudden heart attack, and passed away a week after returning home from the hospital. Although his Patricia didn't die, she couldn't withstand the repeated blows, and went completely insane. Following the courtroom's ruling, I successfully divorced David, and the custody of our daughter, Lily, was also granted to me. David's assets, as they involved financial fraud, were all frozen and seized by the court. However, this did not cause me substantial harm. I moved out of the Ford family home and back to my parents' home. Emily transferred the $800,000 I had entrusted to her to me. Originally, part of this money belonged to Tiffany, and another part was transferred from the company's accounts, having nothing to do with David. With this money as a safeguard, my life became much easier. My dad's health recovered day by day. In his free time, he helped me take care of my daughter, picking her up and dropping her off at school every day, allowing me to work outside the home and fulfill my potential. My salary wasn't high, but it was enough for the family's expenses. Most importantly, the company was close to home, giving me more time to spend with my family. Although I had experienced dark clouds, when the clouds dispersed, my sky would be clear skies, and the future would be filled with sunshine and hope. The end.